Good morning, friends. Regina Sanchez here, your spiritual life and health coach. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, and I'm going to do a video series, and I have not done videos in a very, very long time. I've been mostly doing audio podcasts. So I decided to do this video series on a journey of patience, and I hope that it blesses you. But this morning I'm in the car. It's a beautiful sunny morning, cold, but it's lovely, and I am on my way to a quilt store in Connecticut to do a sew-in. Now, I was invited to go to this sew-in once a month by some friends, some lovely ladies in my guild, to do some crumb quilting, which is literally using your little pieces of leftover fabric and making something out of it. So I joined them last month, had a lot of fun, and said, yeah, I'll join you again. But today I decided I'm not going to work on my crumb project, but that I am going to work on another project that is teaching me more and more patience. Now, a number of months ago, I did a blog podcast on how quilting has taught me patience. And I'll put the link for that blog post or podcast in the description below if you want to go refer to it. But I had gone through so much healing that really God brought me through. And sometimes, we pray for things and it doesn't happen right away. And it's frustrating. But, we all want patience. But sometimes the patience that we get or that we need to move into has to require going through situations that requires us to apply patience, right? For a very long time, I used to just pray and think God was going to just drop down from heaven patience. And I would just miraculously now be patient. And that hasn't been the issue. Maybe sometimes it is for some people, but it hasn't been for me. So for me, quilting has truly let me experience having patience, because it's a very long process sometimes, depending on what you're making. But I've made some quilts that, I had 640 2.5-inch squares that I had to cut. And I just patiently, little by little by little, every day, whenever I felt like, I would go and I would just do, if I spent an hour, cutting the pieces, eventually I got to what I needed. And there were even times in my quilting where I made the mistake 4 times, the same mistake, or maybe something a little different, but in the same spot. I would take it apart, I'd fix it, I'd sew it, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's still wrong. 4 times. And at the end of it, all I did was laugh at myself, as opposed to getting frustrated, angry at myself, criticizing myself, and frankly, a lot of times just giving up. So my quilting has just taught me so many lessons, and I am embarking on a quilt that I am going to let you journey with me. So I'm off to this quilt store, quilt shop, and I'm going to do some sew-ins, and I'm going to work on this quilt that is really teaching me patience, because I actually almost gave up on the goal I had for this quilt. I was there. I was there going to give up, but shortly after I said, no, I'm going to keep pushing through. So later on, I will show you when I get back home in my little sewing nook. I will show you my quilt, and I'll give you a little more explanation of the process that I'm going through to learn patience. So I hope you join me on this journey, and I hope that until you get my next video, that you have a beautiful day. God bless. Hi friends, I'm back home in my office, or I'm actually in my kitchen right now. And as I said, I was going to continue this video in regards to my journey with quilting. And I did not do it when I got home from my sewing yesterday, so I thought I would do it fresh and early this morning. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're still here with me, and I hope you follow me with this journey that I've taken, this new journey of making this new quilt. So I have been quilting for 4 years now. 4 years, yeah, it's been 4 years. And it's just been a great passion of mine. I've loved every moment of it. So I just want to walk you through this new journey of making a quilt actually for myself. And I am going to talk to you about the ups and downs of it and how I almost gave up. So let's take a step back. I've been quilting, been making quilts. I've made quilts as gifts for people. And my tendency to make a quilt size is about a lap size. I've made some baby quilts, but I'm making, most of my quilts are lap size. You know, you're laying on the couch and you want to throw something on top of you. But I decided this time that I was going to make a quilt for myself, for my bed. And my bed is a king-size bed. So I have a big project ahead of me. But I found this really lovely pattern in a quilt store in Rhode Island a few months ago when I was there with my girlfriend. And I thought, oh, I love this quilt. I'm gonna just buy the pattern because one day I'll make it. And I decided, oh, I'm gonna make this quilt for my bed. Now the problem with it is the quilt in the pattern is for a baby size or a lap size. And now I need to figure out, how am I gonna make this on my king size bed? Now, mind you, math and me are not friends. I am not good with math, never been. Numbers and I just don't get along. So trying to recalculate how to expand the size of this quilt was a little difficult. But I thought I had it all figured out. How wrong was I? But I got my calculations, and off I go to a quilt store, my local quilt store here, that my daughter actually beautifully gave me a $100 gift card at Christmas. So I thought, I'm going to go spend this on a project for myself. So off to the quilt store I go, spent about an hour or so with the ladies there, looking for fabric, explaining the math calculations that I did. They seemed to be okay with it, but they probably weren't paying much attention to it. And anyway, bought my fabric, came home and started sewing. And I took it little by little by little. Well, as I was making the quilt, let me show you. I'm gonna take a minute. I'm gonna reverse the camera here, so bear with me. I'm gonna reverse this. I'm gonna show you the pattern. So here is my table, my kitchen table with my stuff on it from yesterday. So this is the pattern. Fresh as a daisy. I love it. It's fresh, it's pretty, it's simple, and I just love it. I start making I start cutting the pieces out, and I decided last weekend I'm gonna make one daisy. So I have the pieces cut, and I'm thinking to make my quilt I need 41 daisies, I think, when I combine the two sizes. Okay, so I said, well, let me make one daisy so that I can get an idea how long this is gonna take. So making the one daisy took me an hour. And I thought, wow, I've got to come up with a better plan because I've got to make 40 more. And boy, this is going to take a long time, 40 hours. So of course you piecemeal and you piece sew, you chain stitch, you do all of that, which makes it go by quicker. But as I was making the daisy, and kind of in my head, I had a daisy, I had the square, it was I think a 9.5-inch square done. So now I have a better idea and I start recalculating the quilt and I realize 41 squares of a daisy is not going to work. I have miscalculated this quilt. Now, mind you, there were some pieces that I had to cut, like, I don't know, 600 some odd squares, 600 and something 1.25-inch squares, 300 and something 2.5 by 4-inch, 150 2.5 by 4.5, or whatever the sizes were. It was a lot of cutting. And now I'm thinking, this isn't going to work. I need more I need more daisies. So I went and I laid it out physically on a sheet of paper, laid it out. Let me get it and I'll show it to you. So I laid out the squares. I've got all kinds of calculations on it. And I realized I need 90 squares. 90 squares. My 41 square calculation is not going to cut it. And I sat there knowing that just all the cutting I have done, I think so far I've spent maybe 15, 16 hours cutting, shopping, cutting, and starting to piece. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to make 90 daisy squares. And I just felt discouraged. And I thought, I don't know if I could do this. Maybe I will just make the quilt with the 41 daisies. And whatever size it is, and I'll rethink making a quilt for my bed. Almost gave up, which is a pattern that I had years ago, especially as in my younger age. I would give up. I would say, no, this is too overwhelming. And even as a teenager, I did a lot of sewing. I actually would make my clothes as a teenager when I was in high school. And bless my mom's heart, she had the patience of a saint, because I would be making something and I didn't get it. I didn't understand the instructions. I got frustrated and I wanted to give up. And like I said, bless her heart, she would sometimes pick up the piece and fix what I messed up, or she would explain what I needed to do. She was great, but I still was impatient. And then fast forward 10 years later, and I'm in my mid-20s, and I'm thinking, I think I want to start sewing. So I go buy a pattern. I bought a pattern to buy a blouse, which is not an easy project. I felt so overwhelmed. Of course, now I'm alone. I'm living alone. I don't live with my parents, so my mom's not there to help me, and I gave up. I said, forget this. And I didn't make what I wanted to make. So that was a tendency for me, because of the woundings that I had, because of the abuse I endured in my, as a child, I had records playing in my head constantly telling me I was stupid, I didn't know what I was doing, you can't do this, this is too hard. Those were records that were constant in my head. So now when I started quilting 4 years ago, I hired a teacher. She taught me how to quilt. I worked with her for almost a year. I think I made maybe 3 quilts with her. And it worked great. It went fine. And I learned. And then I ventured off, on my own, feeling a little overwhelmed by it, but I did it. And I made a very large quilt, actually. That was the quilt that had 640 1.5-inch squares, or maybe they were 2.5-inch squares. But whatever, that was like a big project. But after I got it done, and it's beautiful, it's laying on my guest bed right now, I realized, that's when it hit me, that I was healed from that past trauma of those records playing in my head, because I would just take it piece by piece, little by little, and I got it done. So now when I'm working on this quilt for myself and I realized I miscalculated, right? So what record comes to my head right away? Oh, Gina, see, yeah, you can't do that. Math is not, you're not friends with numbers. You're stupid. Those records were trying to come back. And then when I sat discouraged and I said, I'm not going to do this. This is too much for me. Forget it. I'm 90 daisies, and each daisy has 8 petals. So 90 times 8 is 720 petals. And each petal, the white petal, has things that have to be sewn to it. So it's a big project. And so I did get overwhelmed, and I did get discouraged, and I almost gave up. Well, I actually gave up for a few minutes. I did. I decided, okay, I'm not doing this. But I didn't let myself stay there. And I was able, quickly, I snapped myself out of it. And I said, no, you love this quilt. You wanted this on your bed. You want a summer quilt on your bed, something lighter, because I have a beautiful down quilt on my bed. And when summer comes, I just have to pull the quilt down to the foot of the bed because I can't, there's no way I can sleep with it. And, I just lay with a sheet, and I've wanted a quilt, a light quilt for my bed in the summertime. So I said, no, you wanted to make this. Just do it little by little, piece by piece. And, if it's not ready until the end of summer, it's not ready till the end of summer. Whatever, just go for it. If it's not ready till next spring, it's not ready till next spring. Whatever it will be, but keep moving forward. So I did go back to the quilt store. I actually spent a very long time. If you could see the pile of paper, of scrap paper, of calculating and recalculating how much fabric I needed to go back and get to finish off the quilt. Because I had a little extra of the blue fabric to continue on. I did have extra of that, but I didn't want to buy way too much, and I didn't want to shortchange myself. So I spent a long time recalculating and figuring and recalculating and laying it out. And I still may not have it right. I think I figured out I may not need 90. I probably could cut a row off and a column, I think. I don't know, but I'm going to keep going. And I am going to get this quilt done. So journey with me. I may get frustrated. I may get overwhelmed again. But journey with me, and I hope that I can teach you how to keep persevering. But to be honest, the key to help me keep persevering required healing. It required healing from past trauma. And if I didn't have that healing, I don't know that I could keep doing this. I don't even know if I would have started. So friends, don't let yourself stay in that place of defeat and feeling rejected and overwhelmed and not pursuing something that really means a lot to you. So I hope that this message blessed you. Oh, and I actually want to show you my little sewing area. So I was sewing on my kitchen table, right? And I live alone. So, if the sewing machine sat there for a few days, who cares? I'm alone. And I have a counter that I'm actually sitting at right now that I can put my cutting mat. It works beautiful. But then my lovely daughter gave me this beautiful machine that she no longer wanted. And it's a big machine, a very big, expensive machine. And so it was not comfortable sitting at the kitchen table sewing. So I needed to create another sewing space. So let me journey with me, take a little walk with me as I show you my sewing space. Okay, friends, so here is my sewing room, right? It's right off my kitchen. It works perfect. So this is my family room. And I took this couch and I moved it forward more and I created this space. Bought an IKEA table and I have this beautiful sewing machine here that my daughter gave me that she no longer wanted, no longer is quilting. I actually don't even know how to run it fully because it's electronic, it embroiders, it does a lot of things. So I have a whole learning journey with that. But this is my little space and it works beautifully. And let me show you this too. So this is my quilting ladder that has quilts that I've made that actually I put on my website. Some of them are on my website. I'm going to try to see if I can sell some. And this little bookcase that I'm now converting into my sewing space. So on the top I have some quilting books over here. I have a couple quilts that have no room on the ladder. Next shelf, I've got some fabric. Minimal. I have minimal fabric compared to a lot of people that I see have. And then my next shelf is fat quarters. I am a fat quarter addict. I love fat quarters. So a fat quarter is a half a yard and half of that. That's what they call fat quarters. And a lot of quilting patterns call for 30 fat quarters or whatever it is. So I don't know. I love fat quarters. You can make little projects with them. But this is my sewing area. And I get company. I take down the ironing board. But this is where I sew and I love it. And it works well. So friends, thanks for joining me on my journey of making my quilt. And I will keep going, and I hope you join me. Thanks.